There's a cat over here. There's a cat over there. And the wrong one died. And the wrong one died. Welcome to The Wrong Cat Died, the podcast breakdown of the catastrophe. I'm your host, Mike Abrams, and today we have another amazing guest. She was Tantomile on the most recent U.S. national tour, number 6 of Cats. So welcome, Melody Rose, and thank you for joining me.
Thanks for having me.
I have been a little terrified of the twins as I've learned more about them. And so I do want to get into that later, but I do always love to start about hearing about your cat's history. So I want to hear, did you do a childhood production? Did you do production before the tour? Like, how much did you know about the show before you went on tour?
So I essentially was a young Cats obsessive fanatic. When I was around 10 years old, my sister brought home the Cats VHS from, I think, Hollywood Video or Blockbuster, something crazy. And I remember her watching it, and I went in and out of her room to see bits and pieces of it. And I was so interested because I've been dancing since I was 3, so I was super into musicals and any dance show. And then I was like, let's watch the whole thing. So I sat and I watched the whole thing, and I kind of put my own plot together and understood it at a young age somehow and created this whole story. And at the end of Mistoffelees, I was bawling as a 10-year-old because it was so beautiful to me as a child. And that's when I just became obsessed. And then I started showing it to all of my friends at sleepovers and being like, I want to dance like these people when I'm older. And then, of course, I saw it on tour. I'm going to say 2007 or 8 when it came to the Hippodrome in Baltimore back in the day. And that was the first time I saw it live. And I was like, wow, it's just like the movie, not putting 2 and 2 that Gillian Lynn did both productions. Yeah. And then I saw the revival in 2016 a couple of times because I had a bunch of friends from school and dance competitions growing up that were in it. So I got to see that twice. And then a bunch of auditions happened while I was at school for that production, and that didn't work out, and then somehow ended up on the tour.
That's amazing. Okay, I want to break down a couple of these things you said in there. So one is it's I'm assuming an older sister?
Yes, 4 years older.
Okay, 4 years older. So she has it. What was her take on the show when she saw it? You became obsessed. Did she enjoy it?
She enjoyed it. She really liked it. She was a big Mistoffelees fan, big Skimbleshanks fan. She even made me, fun fact, she even made me a little plush Mistoffelees. She's super creative. So I had a little plush Mistoffelees when I was younger.
So you were really into this. Okay. And then what did your friends think when you showed them this? Was it well received?
Yes and no. It was it was a mixed bag of emotions.
Yeah.
What in the world is this? Who the hell are they? This doesn't mean anything. They couldn't think of a plot. They couldn't put 2 and 2 together. It was just, they were weirded out by the half human, half cat thing. But some of my friends, most of the dancer friends were like, wow, these people are so talented, even when we were young and really didn't know much about the technical elements of the show. But yeah, it was just mostly a mixed bag.
I do. So I didn't even really know much about it until I kind of knew what it was. I knew it's a running joke and a punchline and a lot of different things, but I didn't really know. I didn't go as a kid. I didn't see it. I didn't grow up in theater. I didn't grow up singing, dancing or anything. So it's I saw what came through occasionally through Indiana, and I would only go to a few shows, and Cats just was never on that list. And so I didn't even know the 1998 movie or VHS existed until after I saw it on Broadway.
No,
and so I find it kind of fascinating. I have seen that now, but I find it's I can only imagine if somebody showed it to me as a 10-year-old, I'd be like, what are you making us watch? Because it's definitely different. I mean, if you're a dancer or you're in theater, you're probably just yeah, this is incredible. But if you're not and you're just watching, it's just what is this movie?
What is going on? Yeah. Exactly.
Okay. So you've been obsessed from day one. Did you, growing up, was there a cat that you were just this is who I'm going to be?
Yes and no. Of course, all little dancers growing up, they want to be Victoria, the white cat with the high leg. I remember watching her in the 1998 film and being how can she get her leg that high and hold it like that and go into a split? I did not know that was physically possible. And then I was I'm going to work hard to be able to do that one day. And yeah, I just was obsessed with her. And I remember going into auditions and I kept being pulled for Victoria. So most of my audition process was around Victoria. It would be like, let's do the Victoria solo, Victoria solo. And then I was like, oh, I'm Tantomile, cool. But it was just so funny how the road to it was mostly Victoria, Victoria, Victoria. But yeah, she was just so magical, and she got to dance with Mistoffelees, who was my favorite. So that's who I looked up to the most when I was a kid.
Okay, so that's a very common answer, right? Because it's like it's got the solo, the dance number,
right?
So now tell me, you get casted, and you're one of the twins, and I have not really dug into a lot of the song characters, and then I have now learned about some of the other ones fairly deep, and the more I actually still have a page open because I'm like, the twins fascinate me, because the more I've learned about them, the more I'm like, what is going on? Like, I never pieced together what like their powers and all this stuff that's happening, and the more I've heard about it, it's an experience. So tell me a little bit about like what you were told about your character, and then like what it's like playing that almost psychic.
A lot of people are scared of the twins, which is so funny. They don't know why they're there. They're confused as to what their storyline is. Why are they always introducing old dude? Why are they psychic? What does that mean? So Tantomile and Coracopat, they're essentially timeless, is what I was told. There are basically 3 categories of cat ages in the show. There's the kittens, there's the little teenager cats in between, and the adults. So the adults would be like Jelly and Skimble, and then teenagers would be more like Alonzo,
Tugger, and
kind of thing. Yeah, Tugger. Yeah. And then the younger cats, Syllabub, Victoria, Rumpleteazer, all of that. But the twin cats really don't have an age. Apparently they're so wise. They could be 400 years old, that kind of deal. And essentially my adjectives that were given to me, because all cats have the 3 adjectives that they are given at the beginning of the process. Mine were telepathic, suspicious, and tentative. And with Tantomile, she and Coracopat, they're always sensing if something is wrong. And they're the first people to realize that the energy is off in the room, or they can sense Grisabella's coming, or they can sense the happiness that old dude is coming, and everyone can relax. So everyone in the show kind of looks to them to see how they should be reacting, if they should be nervous, if they should be worried, if they can be calm, if they can be playful. They kind of look to the twins to make sure everything is okay. It's kind of like the, I don't know, like the how to keep it moderation, the tribe moderation, if you will. But that's kind of what we were told. But yeah, a lot of people get creeped out by the storyline of the twins, but we're really just there to be the messengers of old dude and kind of transfer the energy to Syllabub, to give her the courage to sing Moonlight, to bring Grisabella back in, essentially.
What about the relationship with Cassandra? Because isn't she also a little timeless and telepathic? And
yes, so we were told that she is also a psychic cat, if you will. There's no sibling relationship, but there's definitely a relation, maybe a long lost cousin. But there are moments in the show when we did pass Cassandra and kind of like give her a nod, just because we know. It's just like we already know that she has the same sort of powers as us, not as strong. But we just kind of acknowledge that throughout the show. It's very, very small. The audience eye usually doesn't see it, but it is in there.
Yeah, I think that was a piece where I want to see it again, to see all the other nods of like, you turn before everyone else. Like, you kind of sense the show before it happens. And that to me is like not something I picked up on, because it's such an experience when you're there. There's so much going on that like, it's hard. I was still just trying to figure out the plot, let alone like anything else that was happening on stage. And I just, now I'm like, okay, if they're psychic, how much power do you think that they really wield over the tribe? Like, is it a lot of understated power that they don't use every year, but probably could?
I definitely think it's understated. And I feel like they save it for special events. They could use it, but I think they reserve it. For instance, in the show, there's a couple ways that you can see that they can sense change before all of the other cats. Like at the end of the Mungo Jerry Rumple Teaser duet, they all go in slow-mo when they throw their bags of cash, or when they rob the house, when they throw their bags over. It's in slow motion to the audience's eye, but to Tantomile and Corocopat, they're essentially stopping time because they sense that old dude is coming, and then they have a duet, and then they see that old dude is coming, and they kind of like bring Mistoffelees into that. Mistoffelees says, "Old Deuteronomy," they sing their little line, and then old dude starts coming down the stairs, and then everyone breaks out of their slow-mo. So it's kind of like almost, you can't understand, they don't see it because they're in motion, and then they kind of turn around and then they're like, oh, broken out of the slow-mo. It's very, very complex, not complicated. And then there's also during the ball, at the end of the ball, right before the judders in the song, or it's like dun 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 or whatever, really off edge there. And but the first people to turn around, it's right after the Plato Victoria duet when they the first people to pop up are the twins when that music comes in right before the big ball music. And that's because we sense Grizabella first, and she's in the upstage left corner, and we kind of sense it first, and then Misto gets up, and then I think Cassandra gets up, and then kind of everyone's realizing something's wrong because the twins are messed up, the Misto's messed up, people are like, the back of the hair on their neck is standing up, something's wrong, and then you realize Grisabella's in the upstage left corner, and then they start to dance all together and shoo her away.
So how much influence do you think that they probably could have had on the tribe? Like, everyone's looking to them. Do you think that they like recognize how important they are, or they're just like so old at this point because they're timeless, they're just like, yep, I got it, this is our job, we're going to keep doing it?
I think they're pretty far removed. I think that the adult cats are the ones that they look to for kind of what move they should make in accordance to how they should act when a different cat comes out and does their number. Like when Grizz comes out, they're all like, get back, get back. They don't really look at the twins for that. They kind of just look at the twins for safety, I think, more so than how to react. And like, I don't know. We don't have power over the tribe. We just kind of have, never really thought about that.
That's what I'm here for, to ask the questions that no one else is asking.
I don't know.
Okay. What else were you told? Like, what other pieces, not just for Tantomile, but for everyone else, like what else are you told about, here's the relationships or the stories that like you need to kind of know to play your character?
Well, we know that we are kind of, I don't want to say servants, but we are the messengers and pretty much the altar boys for old Doot. So if old Doot wants to bring wisdom to the tribe, we are the ones to deliver that message, because Doot isn't going to take his time to interact with each individual cat. We kind of deliver the message telepathically through touch. And there was a moment where because Victoria is the one who touched Grizz at the end, and she knows that she's chosen, which is strange in the plot line, but I understand it. But there's a moment where Corocopat and Tantomile crawl over to Victoria and touch her right before Gus's song. It's very unnoticeable to the audience, but we actually touch Victoria, and that's kind of when we send the energy to her to be the one to be curious enough to touch Grizabella at the end. She's always curious, but she is kind of removed because the adults tell her to stay away, but she's still curious. Not as curious as Syllabub, but
so yeah. You are the one that gets Victoria to go touch Grizabella at the end. You give that message. The twins do. Yeah. I did not pick that up. So yeah,
very, very subtle. That might have been just something that we made up, that we believed for our characters, because we obviously all have the artistic freedom to kind of make up our own plot line through our cast. But I can't remember if that was a stage direction, but we created that moment because we felt it was right and everyone kind of knew about it.
I love that. I think there is Yeah, I mean, there has to be some artistic freedom in that. And I think there is so little, not little, you're given some, like, but you're not given a ton about every character. And so there has to be a little bit of like, okay, what else backstory? Did you create more to your backstory than
Yes.
what was given? Let's hear it. I want to hear.
Kind of create our own backstory. Of course, I had the whole 3 adjectives thing done. I had the telepathic side down. I was psychic, got it. Witch cat, check. And after that, I kind of but worked with my twin to kind of find the energy to portray the characters in a true manner to ourselves and our personalities personally. And it was interesting because I had so many different twins, because my twin Maurice, he's Choreocopat in the tour, he was the Misto cover. So every time Misto was out, I'd have a new twin. So it would change and change and change. So with every, there was a different story that we told. Some were a little bit more playful, some were more reserved, some were more technical and stoic. It was very interesting because as a twin, you can't really have the freedom to find your own, I don't know, style of movement. You have to move the same with them or it looks off. And thankfully, one of my twins was one of my best friends from college at school that we danced together. So we just like kind of knew I could just kind of like take a deep breath and relax when he was on stage, because I knew how he danced so well that I could just turn that side of my brain off and just work on the character. And yeah, we just kind of like created a plot where Choreocopat was a little bit more reserved rather than playful. And like I would like during Tugger, when we're sitting on the oven, you can't really see the twins, but we're on the oven while everyone's dancing. And the whole point of Tugger is that all the men cat want to be like him and all the women cats want to be with him. And like I like kind of like broke out and like into the more playful kitten side of my character, and Choreocopat would like shoo my paw away and be like, all right, let's get back to how we watch over the tribe and calm it down. So my Tantomile was a little bit more playful, more kitten-like than it should be, I think, but it worked. And yeah, we just kind of created the storyline of how we would watch over the tribe, kind of like watch cats in a way, to make sure everything was a-okay in the junkyard. But
yeah. So you kind of have a role that is almost like an observer throughout. Perfect. What is that like to be able to do a little mix of like, you have a real part to play, a dance to play, and numbers and stuff to do, but also kind of like an audience member in a sense of like overseeing? Is that a hard, like, what's that balance?
Well, I enjoyed it because I could really study all of the characters and their adjectives and their emotions. And I kind of like could sit back and be like, I already know what's going to happen. I already know what happened in the past. I already know what's going to happen 100 years in the future, kind of. I know what's going to happen. I'm calm and cool and collected. And like watching the audience and kind of like smirking at them, being like, oh, you have no idea what's about to happen, but I know. Kind of that like, I don't know, pre-notion of every movement that they're going to make. Yeah, it's hard to describe.
Yeah, it's kind of a unique thing. I wonder how much, as a Tantomile, thinking about like, I know everything, I know what's going to happen, I'm going to be there. Did you ever come up with your what's going to happen next year's Jellicle Ball? Like, you know what's happening in next year's Jellicle Ball. Grisabella is going to be picked for this year. You're going to go about your business this year without her, and you already know what's Jellicle Ball 2. Like, what's happening there?
I think in my head, what I would make up is that we'd come back. Everyone's a little bit older. There's a couple new kittens coming for the first time. I think Victoria would start to become her own Grisabella in a sense, just because she is the cat that everyone was crazy about last ball. And I'm not sure if anyone has mentioned this on your podcast in the past, but in Andy Blankenbuehler's revamping of Gillian Lynn's choreography, Victoria partners with every single male ensemble member in the ball, and she's the only one to be lifted by every single one of them. And it's kind of like they all have to touch her in the ball.
Huh.
Because, like,
I don't think
yeah.
No one's mentioned that. That's really cool. I don't think I pieced that together too. That's like a very unique piece. So
Fun.
she's now, yeah. So that's awesome. I learn something new every time I talk to anybody about this show, because there's just so much happening. So okay. So she's
like the hot commodity
the
on the
new
show now. Yeah. And then I'm sure people will, who would be the next Grizz? Because no one's really that, I don't want to say disheveled or has that bad of a past, unless McCavity would come back and kind of ruin it all.
Yeah. Is Gus still around?
McCavity would come back and kind of like hope for I don't know,
his own redemption.
Yeah. That would be kind of cool, I think.
Yeah. Is Gus still around in your second Jellicle Ball? Has he died in between?
Yeah. He's already on his last 4 legs.
Yeah.
There. And I always thought that Gus should be the one to be reborn.
We're gonna get there. Don't worry. That's coming. That's my last question for you. Yeah. I want to hear the Gus argument. Okay. One other question, a little bit about the twins, since I think it's really interesting. You said, you had different twins at all times. Mm-hmm. In that kind of scenario, do you really try to lead and they try to kind of play into your twin, or do you kind of come a little bit more to them, or is it really pretty mutual?
Well, with my normal twin, it was very mutual. Like, we knew each other back and forth, and I kind of like became telepathic in a way.
Yeah.
Like, we knew which way we were going to move. If we like moved our hand a certain way or like pointed a certain way, we were there. But the other two, definitely, I could say that I would be the one leading them, or I'd be like, let's go over here. Like, the ones who would do it like 2 times a month. They would kind of be a little bit, it wasn't their main track. It was kind of like their 5 out of 6 swing tracks. So I would just kind of be like, okay, so we're going to go by the oven, or like, and then they would relax a little bit. But yeah, no, definitely with the 2 other twins that I worked with, it was a little bit more me leading, which is interesting because I enjoyed that, because I'm normally I also I get in trouble a lot in partnering class because I always want to be the one initiating the movement or being like the momentum giver. And I always get yelled at because the men are supposed to lead the ladies, whatever that means. But yeah, so that was fun to be able to lead.
Yeah, as a dancer, to be able to kind of do that. That's really cool. That's kind of a fun piece. What would you, I wanted to give you the scenario of the tour's coming through, mm-hmm. and you have one of your friends that you showed this crazy VHS to from Blockbuster years and years and years ago. Mm-hmm. And you're going to say, hey, look, you don't remember what you saw. Here's what you're going to go witness. How would you give them a rundown of like, here's what Cats is, and you're going to go to the show. Here's what you're going to see.
Okay. So how would I explain Cats? Okay. I would say 1 night a year, all the cats in the Jellicle tribe, all Jellicle cats, come together at the junkyard once a year when the Jellicle moon is full and risen to dance for Old Deuteronomy, who makes the Jellicle choice of 1 cat that will ascend to the Heaviside layer. And it happens once a year. 1 cat gets to be reborn into one of their new 9 lives, however many they're on. And basically, it's a contest of dancing cats, to sum it up well, dancing for their lives, if you will.
Love it. Friends come, they enjoy it. What about, did you bring anybody to go see the new movie, the one that came out that was in theaters? Did you kind of have some people come with you?
We were actually on tour with Cats in Toronto when Cats the movie came out, and a group of us went to go see it together, actually.
And what was that experience like, knowing you saw it probably on an off day or just like a matinee before you were going to go do the show that night?
I think it was right before I was put into the show. So I think it was a week. No, it was after I was in. I think it was on a day off. So we all went, and It was very interesting. There were people in the audience that were kind of reacting as if though it was kind of a midnight showing of Rocky Horror is the best way I can describe it.
Yeah.
Two events, and I couldn't believe the reactions. And watching the movie, incredible cast, incredible choreography. The editing was extremely distracting and did not do the dancers service at all of the dancers are so talented. Robbie Fairchild and all of them just so wonderful. And the editing just made it look so strange. And you couldn't even see the choreography really because of the quick cinematography changes. And I was just, as such a diehard Cats fan of the 98 film, I was just so sad. I was like, these are going to be like the younger generation's experience of what Cats the musical is, and it's not. It was
Yeah, I find that really interesting because the reason I wanted to ask you as like, as a dancer, that was my biggest gripe with the movie. I mean, there were plenty of other questionable decisions, but I was excited when I first heard about it to see it more so because of like, there was some really talented dancers. And then there were some really powerful singers. And I was like, okay, this will be really cool. Even if it's not well edited or done or put together, or like, there were a lot of questions about like, oh, the Cats are really big and then really small and all these other weird kind of decisions. I was like, all of that won't be that big of a deal if the dancing and the singing is really good. But it was really hard to see any single movement from a dancer because it was moving around so much.
Yeah, it was the tails for me. That was the most distracting. And like all of the we barely even touch our tails in the show, and it just kind of is like a second thought, and it's not supposed to be highlighted at all in the choreography really. And I just remember watching Victoria and the fur was CGI'd over her point shoes, and I was like, why would someone do that?
Yeah.
So yeah, it was very. I don't want to say it, but it was disappointing for me. And the night that I went home after seeing the show, I actually downloaded the 1998 film on iTunes so I could watch it, so I could
cleanse your palate.
Yes.
And yeah, I love that. So you go buy it, go watch it, make sure you're ready to go.
And we were all like, please come see the stage version. I promise you'll understand it better and get a more joyous experience out of it.
Yeah. I do think that's that was a piece that I hope people go get to see a live version, and that's not, they're like not turned off because of the experience that they had, because it's so different. It's so different. But I also like feel like that even with the 1998 movie, I still feel like even that is kind of still a stage version, but a film stage version. But I was like, it's still very different than seeing a stage version.
Agreed.
Okay, let's go into a little bit of rapid fire of a couple core questions I want to ask, so then we can have our hearty debate. Who else, like, if you could play any cat at any moment, who would you want to be?
I would have to say, I understudied her. I never got to go on, but I would have to say Victoria. Dream role.
I figured that was going to be the answer. It's like, that's as a dancer, that's also what you grew up wanting to do. What if I take her out of the running? Who would be number 2?
Number 2, I think I am secretly obsessed with tapping, so I would think Jenny.
Jenny, okay. Do you tap?
Yes.
Love to. Okay, so Jenny would be fun. Does that mean you could doesn't Skimble tap too?
Well, not in the stage version.
Just in the movie. Just in the movie. Okay. Who's your favorite and least favorite cat?
My favorite cat is Mr. Mistoffelees. Forever will be. So magical. So I fell in love with Jacob Brent when he played it in the 1998 film, and ever since I was obsessed. Least favorite cat, I don't know. That's hard for me. I might have to say, I don't know. That's gonna be a tough one. It might be a long pause here. I don't know. I don't want to say Mungo, because I guess as a twin, like you don't want to be a part of the other twins. Like you kind of shun them a little bit in a way. It's like they're just annoying. Stop annoying me. So
Yeah, the
I guess
lesser twins. Okay.
Mungo, but oh, Rumpleteazer, that's another one I'd love to play too, even though I'm saying my least favorite because of it as a twin.
I think that's a fun rationale though. It's like, okay, look, there's only room for one twins, and
Right.
we are critical to this show, and so you can't get rid of us. So it's one of you two's guys, the least favorite.
Yeah, something
I
like
love
that.
it.
But I love them
What
all.
is your favorite song?
Favorite song? Besides Mistoffelees, I'd have to say Skimbleshanks. So fun. I'd
Skims, yeah.
always, because we would be singing Gus and then like we'd be crying, like tears in our eyes, and then just like full 180, we are jumping up and down about a cat on who's conducting a train. It's so much fun. And it's kind of like your second wind of the second act.
Yeah. Which cat is my last one before we get to the $1,000,000 question? Which cat do you think character wise, like personality wise, would be thriving in 2021?
Honestly, I think Jelly Lorem would be thriving right now because she always knows what's best for the kittens and the cats, and I bet she would just kind of uh, put all anxieties aside and just kind of go forward with a fresh palette of viewing the world. I don't know, viewing the world in a positive, loving light. And
Yeah, fairly motherly and would be able to.
yes,
Yeah, I do like the answer a lot. I've thought that my answer's always been Bustifer because I feel
yeah,
like just like to sit at home, hang out, like don't
oh,
really need to
that's
do much.
true.
I think this
Look
is his
good,
time.
relax, kind of a long hibernation phase.
Yeah, this is his era right now.
Thriving. You're totally right.
Okay, $1,000,000 question. I have argued at length why I don't think Grisabelle is the right Jellicle choice. I want to know if you agree with me or disagree with me. Either I would love to hear either your defense for Grisabella or who you think it should be and why.
Okay, well.
And I want to have this like, who do you as Melody, and then who would Tantomile as
Okay.
like, I would love to hear both of those answers.
Me as Melody, I think I do kind of agree that Grizz should be the one to be chosen because of just seeing how well. See, now I'm torn because thinking as Tantomile, I would pick Gus just because the relationship that we created within the show with Tim, who played Gus, us as twins kind of had a special relationship with him, and like we were feral cats, like we don't have collars, so like we don't have owners, and we also think that we might be related to Gus in a way, and we were told that that could be a possibility. So we kind of have that special connection with him, and I don't know, he just lived a long, wonderful life and is so old and can't be himself like he used to be, not in the way that Grizz was, like at the end of Act 1 when she kind of relives her glory days, but she chose to leave the tribe. So that's kind of on her, and Gus has always been there. So I think Gus would be a better candidate for being reborn because he's on his last leg. He has palsy, he's in pain, he needs a new life. And I think as Tantomile and Melody, I agree that Gus should be the one to.
You're now arguing for both. I love it. So why doesn't Tantomile give that? I mean, you have that power, don't you think?
I don't know if it's that powerful enough to be able to convince old Deuteronomy to make the decision because he's always the one that's kind of flowing the telepathic like messages to us. So he's kind of like the alpha there at the top of the food chain, and we're kind of right behind him. But I don't think we are that much in charge of that decision, unfortunately. I'd like to think one day we might be like the heirs to old dude, potentially. But yeah, in our show, not there yet.
I do want to, that does spark another question for me, because I do want to hear a little bit about the twins' relationships with some of the other cats. Because like now that you said that, you think that there's a relation to Gus, and I know you are old dudes, like, you know, people like you're the twins in charge. Are you? What's the relation to Monkish Trap then? Because isn't he supposed to be the heir? Like he's supposed to take over next. Like do you feel like since you're almost omnipresent, you're going to be able to, like, you're going to take over when old Dude leaves, you're going to still be the two twins doing everything for Monkish Trap?
I don't know. I know that Monk and Tugger are both sons of Old Deuteronomy. I know that for a fact. Stepbrothers. And in Old Deuteronomy's song, you kind of see the relationship and how they're kind of like about one another. But I feel like they might just get so much into fights that it would like kind of skip them to us, if you will. I don't know. That we're more, I don't know.
I love this argument because I've always been under the assumption that Monk is basically trying to prove his worth to be next. And it's a part that I find really interesting, because it's the argument I've tried to make of like, is Old Deuteronomy even eligible to be a Jellicle choice?
Yeah, I never really thought of that, because I feel like he's not. I feel like he's out of the loop because you can't choose yourself.
So then how is Monk ever taking over? Like when is his time?
Monk would take over and then choose Old Dude somehow. Like he would pass the torch, and then that would be the way that Old Dude comes back as a new life, in a new life.
Yeah.
But yeah, I just feel like it might go to Monk first, now that I think about it, because he is such a leader and the protector of the pack. But in a different way than the twins, because we're kind of off to the side observing, and he's more in command of the space. Kind of, obviously, he fights McCavity when he comes into the stage. He is more of the person who will take action directly rather than kind of tell. I don't know. You know what I'm trying to say?
I do, which is crazy, because this is a wild conversation for anybody who does not know cats. I do find that really kind of unique and different, because it's like you're, as the cats that you're kind of everlasting. Like, is there ever a time that you want to be in? Like, do the twins even want to be in charge?
I think so. Just because they're so. I don't know, the twins and Old Dude have this sense of regalness and calmness about them that could be good for them to be the leader, whereas I don't want to say Monk is just kind of like all over the place, kind of like bouncing around, a little bit anxious. Like kind of like Demeter is, not as much as Demeter is anxious, but he takes command of the space in a different way than Old Dude does when he comes in. Like the whole energy in the room changes, and even Monk changes. And it's kind of like Alonzo is kind of like second in command to Monk. I don't know if that's been brought up either. That's a thing that like Alonzo's trying to prove his worth to be as good as Monk. And that
so
there's
a competition there.
So like in the McCavity fight, when Monk is fighting, he needs extra hands. Alonzo comes in right away to kind of prove to Monk that he could be Monk if Monk were to become Old Dude. Yeah,
so there's a chain of command
storyline that like is not.
There's a chain of command, and
yeah,
and that's where I'm curious. Like, is are you in that? Or are you just hanging out? Of like, we can be here for the next 400 years. Eventually, those two will get picked, and then it's our time.
I think so. I think we're just kind of like relaxed about it because we've done this for so long. It's kind of the vibe, but I think one day, like when all else fails, like we are there to kind of overlook Old Dude's wishes.
Do the twins ever have a want or desire to be the Jellicle choice? Is there a year that they're going to get picked?
I don't think so. I think no.
Have they ever been reborn, or are they on life number one and they're going to stay there for thousands of years?
I think they're on life number one and have just seen so much in their lifetime that they are fine, just smooth sailing on life number one till the end. I don't even know if there is an end for them. I think
no end. They're gonna live on forever, just like the musical.
Memory live, yes.
Just like the VHS tape from Blockbuster. Is there anything that you took from the show that we didn't cover today that you think, like, you've told me a lot of things I didn't know? What else do you think I don't know? I'm like really interested. Like, I didn't know the Alonso piece. I definitely didn't know the twins touching Victoria to send her. Mm-hmm. So what else did I miss?
I'm trying to think. I don't know if you've gone over like choreography things, because Gillian Lynn, her choreography is so iconic, and Andy Blankenmuller came in and revamped it. Andy Blankenmuller is a genius, and he is my favorite choreographer on the planet. And he revamped it in a way where true Cats fans could come back and see the true Cats in Gillian Lynn's creation, but he revamped it because people in 98 didn't have the technology that we do today, where I could have the TV on and be on my computer talking to somebody and texting on my phone at the same time. We're so used to having so many different things going on at once to our vision, and being able to perceive that all at once. So Andy Blankenmuller added like 10 things are happening at a time on stage, as opposed to one where they're all dancing in like Gillian Lynn's production. So there's so much more that you can see. Like, you can go back 100 times and probably see something new every time you see it, which is so interesting. But yeah, he revamped the choreography. So there are so many different storylines going on at once that it's kind of like a choose your own adventure when you go see the show. So it makes it a little bit more interesting to the modern eye, which I think
that's fascinating that you say that, because it makes a lot of sense. And I don't think I pieced it together because I think I thought about it a different way, because I definitely saw the Broadway revival twice. And it was overwhelming in a good way, but it was also like, I was really trying to figure out what was happening, let alone all the different things that were going on, as someone who didn't have any knowledge of the show before that. And so then I saw the 1998 movie, and I think I interpreted that aspect that you're kind of saying of like, oh, it's a little bit more focused at each moment. But I thought that was just because it's a filmed version that they do kind of point the camera to you at different places. It's not just like a wide angle shot the whole time of the theater. So I did not piece that together because I just thought it was the editing of the movie. But you're telling me it's very different choreography. That is fascinating.
So like the little pieces here and there of Gillian Lynn's that you know and love, like the Victoria solo is the same, that stays the same. Majority of the ball is the same, and the same like movement quality, the same technique you approach is all Gillian, all the same. But then Andy kind of revamped it with his style and his like hip hop qualities that he uses, and kind of like vamped it up for the modern eye. And for true Cats fans, you can see the Cats that you know and love, but enjoy it in another way where you can, I don't want to say, I never get bored when I watch Cats choreography. There's always something going on that's wild. But it's so the modern eye doesn't get tired of seeing the entire ensemble do the same thing, the entire piece, if you will.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's cool. It's kind of playing to the original, but also putting it into the current times, which is ideally what you're hoping to do when you revive a show. So my kind of final question is just, how can we find you on social media? How can we stay in touch?
So you can find me on Instagram. It's at Melody Rose, first and last name, and that's where I basically do all of my social media posting.
Amazing. Well, thank you so much for coming on. I definitely super informative. There's definitely things I did not know. And I have been fascinated by the twins for a while. So it's really interesting to kind of hear from you about like more about them and all their backstory and everything
thanks for having me. Now
goes into it.
A ton of questions to ask myself about the twins and their thoughts on the future of the Jellicle tribe. So thank you.
I'm glad to hear that. I have a personal goal of influencing future productions of this by asking these questions that I don't think other people are asking. And I'm hoping one day that, it comes back and all of a sudden there's some decisions change. And I'll be like, that's because I asked that question a lot.
Exactly.
That's my goal.
I hope this isn't my last time in Cats too. So I will definitely be thinking of that in the future.
I absolutely love it. And thanks for listening to this bonus episode with Melody Rose on The Wrong Cat Died, the podcast breakdown of the catastrophe. To follow along, you can subscribe on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Stitcher, or anywhere else you listen to podcasts. Follow us on Twitter and Instagram at The Wrong Cat Died, or check out our website, thewrongcatdied.com.